Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. So today is a super exciting episode of Wicked Wednesday, and if you couldn't tell by the title, it is about the Joshua Tree Skinwalkers. Now, before I get started, really quickly, there are 2 weeks until October, and October means Halloween, and we get to embrace all of the spooky the entire month, and people won't judge us, but we shouldn't care if people judge us anyways, but people won't judge us, and we're allowed to be spooky and decorate the outside of our houses like crazy. But so if you are into all things spooky, please subscribe, and if you want to stay up to date with all of the videos that are going to be coming out for the month of October, subscribe. You can always hit that bell down below as well if you want notifications that a video is going to be coming out. But for the month of October, you guys are going to get more than just Wicked Wednesday. You're going to get spooky stories sprinkled in throughout the month, as well as a lot of lifestyle, food, costumes, a bunch of stuff for you. I'm going to try and put out a video 5 days a week for the entire month. But if you guys leave comments down below and give me some inspiration, we might get more videos for the month of October. I am really trying. I do have finals in 2 weeks. So once that's done, it's going to be full force of October for us. Actually, no. Oh my God. October's next week. October's next week. Oh my God. Oh my God. I need to get ready for October. But yeah, without further ado, I am going to go ahead and get into this for you guys. Now, I do want to say I'm not going to go 100% into Skinwalkers and what they are and the whole story behind Skinwalkers, because they are an incredibly multifaceted story behind them, and quite frankly, they are talked about a lot. So if I am going to do a video on them, I want it to be completely separate, and I want it to be a lot of information, a lot of facts that come from the lores of the people where the Skinwalker came from, and then yeah, if that makes any sense. But I'll go ahead and get started. Now, if you have never been to Joshua Tree National Park, you should, because it's absolutely gorgeous, but it is the middle of nowhere. It is close to Palm Springs, but the next major cities are pretty far out. You leave Palm Springs and you go up into the high desert, and it becomes pretty speckled with houses. There's little communities up there, nothing major. There is 29 Palms up there. If you guys watched my Yucca Man video, which you should, I do talk about the terrain up there. There is a lot up there. There's a lot of open space. Quite frankly, there's not really anything between Palm Springs and Las Vegas except for these couple little cities, the national park. You get into Amboy, Barstow, and then like there's really not a lot going all the way up there. So there is so much room for the unknown. Now, Joshua Tree is massive. You cannot cover this place in a weekend. You can't cover it in a week. You need weeks to trek everything, maybe even months, because there is a lot of hills, rock climbing, there's mines out there. If you want to see every square inch of the park, it's going to take you a long time, and it's highly unlikely that it's going to happen, and you're putting yourself in danger. Joshua Tree National Park is 790,636 acres. And I've been to Joshua Tree multiple times. The actual ability to drive through the park is pretty small. There's really kind of the camping areas, like the main camping areas, all along certain roadways, and then you just look out and it's desert as far as you can see. There's canyons, caves, you name it, it is out there. Now, Joshua Tree was inhabited by Native Americans. We know them as early back as 8,000 BCE, and this is the Pinto culture. Now, they weren't the only ones there. There were also, I'm looking at my computer, the Serrano, the Cahuilla, the Kemehuevi, and I think there were a few more as well, but I could not find them. But there are native tribes sprinkled all throughout that area. They migrated. The environment is pretty extreme there. You do have freezing nights. You have temperatures that get up to 120 degrees during the day. So migration throughout the seasons was super important, and these different tribes were migrating throughout the high and the low desert in order to find the correct places that helped them survive so they could live off of the land. Now, unfortunately, like most of, actually all of the United States, the native tribes were pushed out by Spaniards, the white people, just people coming in and taking land that they thought was theirs. Now, with these people coming in, they did begin to industrialize the area, but not a lot. So it is pretty common to see when people come in and start messing with the land and start changing the landscapes, the beings and the creatures that have lived there for so long that have not been chased out by people just yet start to get upset, start to get anxious, start to be curious about the people that are coming in, looking into windows, looking into homes. They start seeing hikers just walking along the trail, vulnerable hikers who may have been lost because they went off the trail and now they see them as prey. Like I said, I'll give you a very brief explanation of what a skinwalker is. A skinwalker is said to come from the Navajo tribe, but I have heard other tribes also have fear of the skinwalker or being incredibly similar to it and have very similar stories that come out of it. And we all just clump it into the skinwalker story. So this is said to be a shaman or a witch doctor who took a path of dark magic, and he's done something incredibly bad. He's made a deal with the devil, per se, in their culture, not the Christian devil that you think of today. They have made a deal with evil and have had to do something incredibly bad in order to become a skinwalker. Now, a lot of stories I hear are killing their family, killing tribes, killing children in brutal ways, not just slipping them a poison to kill them. They are brutal murderers in order to become a skinwalker. According to the legend, it is said that you have to have the pelt of the animal that you want to turn into as a skinwalker. So in that area in particular, you're more likely to encounter something like a coyote or a mountain lion, a bobcat, something like that, a rabbit. I don't find rabbits to be incredibly scary. They tend to mimic predators as opposed to prey, but you wouldn't see really a bear in Joshua Tree. It's possible, but the coyotes, mountain lions, bobcats, those are the types of animals that the Joshua Tree skinwalkers would mimic. Now, one thing I do find it very important to point out is that people go missing in Joshua Tree all the time. So I would say maybe 5 people make the big news going missing in Joshua Tree, either missing, dead. A lot of couples go missing up there. You go hiking out in pairs, think you're safe, and then your body is found later on. Now, recently there have been some pretty, I mean, they're all tragic, some very tragic deaths up in Joshua Tree, but the bodies tend to be found. But that's not always the case. Sometimes bodies are not found. Sometimes bodies are found at the bottom of mine shafts. There are still people who have opened cases because their bodies have not been found in Joshua Tree, and that is the last known place that they were. They said they were going on a hike, and where did they go? They ended up missing. Now, the skinwalker typically, from my understanding of the skinwalker, when you see it and you look it in the eye, it puts a target on you, and your likelihood of surviving after that is slim to none. Again, this is all just my reading and my understanding of the multiple stories that I've heard. Typically, natives are targeted, but they're also protected. They have certain chants or medicines and things to rid that binding when you look a skinwalker in the eye. And if you are to look a skinwalker in the eye, they are incredibly fast and dangerous predators that can really just kill you at any moment. And they're also said to be able to imitate people as well in order to lure you in. Now, one thing I find incredibly interesting, as I mentioned, there's not a ton of recorded sightings, because if you see the skinwalker, are you gonna get away? There's not really a lot of places to hide. It's not incredibly populated up there. So if you're out in the middle of the desert hiking, you can't run into town where there's a lot of people and you feel safe. You're just gonna keep running until your body gives out or the skinwalker catches up. More than likely, the skinwalker is gonna catch up. But throughout the campsites, and this is the populated part of Joshua Tree, which is not incredibly populated, there are people who say that they'll have their baby with them. The baby will be crying, and in the middle of the night, they'll hear that crying, and parents know their child's cry. And people will say that they hear that cry of their child, but their child is right next to them. Or they'll hear their spouse talking, but their spouse is asleep right next to them. So there have been reports of some sort of creature attempting to lure people out of their tents or their campsites out in order to be potentially ambushed. As you hear a mimicking of one of your loved ones, and it's trying to lure you out, it's trying to get to you. They tend to not make a big scene. They really bring you in and then they kill you somewhere else. They don't come in and or at least not that I've read, they don't typically come in and just butcher an entire campsite. They will find the weak link and they will lure them out. Now, I am going to read a story for you guys. I'm sorry that there's not a ton of information. I really wanted to go to Joshua Tree and film something about the Skinwalker, but I also chickened out a little bit because I feel safe and secure in my own home, but in a place where there's said to be skinwalkers, I don't really want to be talking about skinwalkers. So I do also want to point out, I never do I want to lead you guys on and tell you guys that there is something when there's not. I'm going to be honest with you. I have looked for Reddit stories, like different forums of like cryptid, supernatural, spooky forums. I've Googled tons and tons trying to find skinwalker stories in the Joshua Tree area. I'm just finding snippets, basically saying people will tell you there's skinwalkers out there, this, and this, which is basically what I've told you guys. There are little accounts that are being reported secondhand, and I really wanted to find an actual first-hand account or a story, whether it's true or not. I wanted to add something in here for you guys as an actual story, but I couldn't find anything. The closest thing I can find, I am going to insert at the end of this video, because they say that it's one thing, but it could potentially be a skinwalker, could be a small skinwalker. We don't know. We don't know what it actually was. So I am going to include it at the end here before my outro. That way you guys can see it. But I don't want to lie to you guys. I don't want to tell you that there's thousands of accounts like there are at Skinwalker Ranch or in New Mexico or Arizona, the Grand Canyon area. There's not a lot of first-hand accounts that I'm really finding at all. I'm just finding little sentences here and there, like I said, secondhand. So I want to keep things pretty honest with you. I'm going to include that video at the end here. One of these days I'm going to bring you guys into Joshua Tree with me because it's not very far from my parents' house. So I really love going out there. I want to camp out there actually, so I think that would be really fun. So yeah, again, subscribe, leave a comment down below, let me know what you guys want to see. October is coming up and I'm so excited. Do you guys like my new background? I wanted something a little more permanent, that way we can keep this up and it's easier for me to film these videos, especially for the month of October. So without further ado, let's get into that story. So I'm going to read you guys the story that I found on Reddit. It is by Onijin. I will leave the link to their page down below. Like always, go give the author some credit. Leave some comments. There's some really awesome comments on his story about them discussing like the back and forth and asking more questions as to what happened. But yeah, let's get started. I'll preface this post by explaining a bit about myself. I've always been a night owl in my current profession. Actually entails being up all night, so the dark doesn't bug me. And I've always had pretty excellent night vision. I don't panic. I'm a medical professional and a bit of an outdoorsman. I'm a big dude, 6'2", 260, and a biology nerd. I posted about the first encounter in a few Ask Reddit threads but never about the second. The first encounter I had was on October 22nd, 2005, on a stretch of back road in the Mojave Desert in the vicinity of Joshua Tree in Yucca Valley, California. It was the third or so day of quail season, and I was all tagged up and ready to go hunting. I had a little Jack Russell Terrier named Gus that a friend let me borrow for the day, since I can't own dogs or cats, allergic as hell, and I drove out and parked my Jeep on a turnout at a dirt road intersection. There are a zillion dirt roads out there, and some of the bigger ones actually have a stop sign at the intersection. It was a good day and getting a little late, but I hadn't hit my bag limit yet. I decided that I would stay out a bit past sundown and try and bag the last few birds on my permit. I was dressed pretty warmly, and Gus didn't seem to mind, so we went. By the time I hit my bag limit, the sun had been over the horizon about an hour. Getting back to the road was easy enough, and following it back to the Jeep was as well. Around the time full twilight set in, I came to an intersection with stop signs in both directions, and was getting my bearings when Gus froze mid-trot and immediately started growling with his hackles up. He was a pretty chill dog, so watching him go from happy little derp to DEFCON 1 so fast was alarming on its own. I scanned the area to see what he might be upset about, because my first guess was wild pigs, and all I had was a shotgun loaded with bird rounds. As I said, these were dirt roads. Each road is roughly the same width as an average 2-lane city street. On the corner opposite the one we were on, I spotted a creature moving with the same general gait as a rooster, but without bobbing its head. What clued me in initially that it wasn't a chicken was the simple fact that the head, from head to foot, it must have been close to 3 feet tall. Based on body mass, I'd estimate that it weighed about 40 to 50 pounds. I tied Gus's leash to my belt so he wouldn't bolt after it and waited for it to wander off. It loitered on the corner for a minute, then without making so much as a flutter, made a roughly 9-foot standing leap from the ground to perch atop the stop sign. Definitely not a chicken. At this point, I decided it was prudent to be armed, so I popped 2 fresh shells in my shotgun and held it at the ready. When I looked back up, I saw its eyes. The 2 things that immediately sprang to mind, this is where the biology geek comes in, were that 1, they were forward-facing, meaning this animal was likely predatory. 2, they were proportionally enormous, meaning that it was likely fully nocturnal. I realized that a 3-foot-tall, predatory, nocturnal, 40-pound animal that can make a 9-foot standing leap was now regarding me from a high perch, albeit from roughly 40 feet away, and that I was in a bad situation. I leveled my shotgun and unloaded both barrels at it. After the echoes died down, it was still perched at the top of the stop sign, but making an odd chirrup noises that sounded a lot like sneezing. I finished reloading, waited until Gus calmed down, and jogged back to the Jeep. On the way back through, I hit my trail lights at the intersection this had happened at, and saw at the stop sign had definitely been peppered well with shot, and that the majority of it had been centered on the animal. This animal had taken a 9-foot standing leap soundlessly, perched perfectly on a 2-inch square area, and had taken 2 12-gauge loads of birdshot center mass and sneezed at me. On the way out of the town, I told the story to a Spanish-speaking clerk at the local gas station, who laughed and told his coworker, "You hear this? This güero just ran into El Chupacabra." That's the first encounter I had another about a decade later, but looking at the wall of text this post has turned into, I'll save it for later. Alright guys, so that is everything. As far as that story goes, I know it says that he found the chupacabra, but it could potentially be a skinwalker, but just a smaller version of a skinwalker. There is really no rule that it has to be a predator. It could have taken the form of a rooster, could have taken the form of something similar to that. There is no rule to what it can or cannot be. So who really knows what he saw? But yeah, I just thought it was really interesting. I think these are really cool. Even if they're really small, I think it's interesting to dissect things and take it with a grain of salt and just form your own opinions. And yeah, I'm babbling on because I haven't been in front of camera for like 3 weeks because I've been pre-filming. Take a shot every time I say in this outro. So yeah, I hope you guys have an amazing day, or night, or morning, or whatever it is, wherever you are. And please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I hit 200 subscribers and then somebody unsubscribed, so now I only have 199 and it's so depressing. But yeah, I hope you guys have a good one. Stay spooky, stay safe. Bye.